Hey, what's going on guys? This is Tom and this is our spoiler-free review of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. 9 films, 42 years and 100 megatons of hype, and just like that, it's over. Yes, with the release of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, we finally have the definitive end to arguably the biggest cinematic story in history. At the start of this final chapter, we find Rey, Finn, Poe and the rest of the Resistance fighters hiding from the growing might of Kylo Ren's First Order. And with old Emperor Palpatine now back on the scene, the goodies discover one final chance to save the day and the galaxy. It's fair to say the last few Star Wars films have had a bit of a slating from the fandom, and very unfairly in my opinion. But regardless, there was a lot of pressure on The Rise of Skywalker to stick the landing. Will it succeed, or will it crash out in the first lap like my boy Mahonic? Obscure prequel references aside, watch on to find out! Without touching on plot details, I can confirm that Episode 9 is quintessentially Star Wars. It's funny, emotional, exciting and fulfilling in equal measure, and very much keeps to the spirit of the series. It's peppered with Easter eggs, references and fan service moments that might be groan-inducing to some, but for me, feel like a welcome return on the time and passion I've invested into this series, right to the end. And speaking of endings, The Rise of Skywalker definitely feels definitive, and in a very satisfying way. A lot of the remaining mysteries and loose ends are wrapped up in a way that provides closure, but still leaves the door ajar to explore these characters and themes in extended universe pieces, or indeed future movies should they ever want to revisit them. But what I would say makes this film so enjoyable for both hardcore fans and casuals alike is its unrelenting breakneck pace. Whereas The Last Jedi is sometimes described as a chase film where the chase happens at 2 miles an hour, The Rise of Skywalker jumps from planet to planet and character to character with such velocity that it's impossible to be bored. It also means that any flaws the film has are quickly forgotten about before you have time to dwell on them. And alas, there are flaws. While most loose ends are tied up nicely, there are some glaring plot holes. Nothing too egregious, but enough to leave you scratching your head leaving the cinema. Now look, these could all be easily explained in future stories, but it did feel like some things are pulled out of thin air for the sake of plot convenience. If you've watched the film already, I'm sure you too are thinking of one particular moment. But as I said, none of these spoil the experience, and I'm willing to give Disney and J.J. Abrams the benefit of the doubt that these moments will be expanded upon in future. But one thing that did disappoint me about The Rise of Skywalker is that it completely overlooked some of the coolest moments of The Last Jedi. Whereas the latter touched on themes like the ambiguity of morality, this is very much a more traditional good versus evil story. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially at the end of the trilogy, but still a shame nonetheless. To wrap up, it's worth re-emphasizing that I loved this film. But as a Star Wars fan, it was designed for me. The fan service is gloriously tacky, but I loved every second of it. It certainly won't be for everyone, and it was always going to be impossible to end the Skywalker saga in a way that pleases everyone. I kinda get the impression that the series has become a bit of a burden, but now I'm excited to see what corners of the Star Wars universe are explored next. The Mandalorian has already proved that there are plenty of amazing stories to tell away from the galaxy's most disruptive family. But what did you scruffy looking nerf herders think of The Rise of Skywalker? Please let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more great videos every single week.